Curtis was like, this video is really good. So if you have a Twitter, you can just post it over there. We can retweet it and stuff. So I made a Twitter immediately. Like I had a Twitter, but then I never used it. So I posted the first tutorial and Curtis retweeted it. And then there's other person called 100 Rips, who is like another huge node god. Like in 2019, now he shifted to Unity shaders, but he was really huge. And those two retweeted the tweet I made, and Blender Today saw the video and they gave a shout out on Blender channel saying that you should go check out this guy. And
Wow.
and that was the huge thing. Like what, Blender actually retweeted my video? That's crazy, right? And that's when I realized, like, okay, maybe I have something, so maybe I should continue. And I made a part 2, and it kept going. And yeah, that's how it all started.
And it's never stopped, has it? It's continued to go.
That's
really great. That's a cool story. So that's how you get involved with that group. Because I know, like, for me, my introduction to you, like, well, I'd kind of got to know you through your work. And then when I joined BlenderNest, and I just showed up the other day and I just walked in the middle of you and CG Matter having this like epic conversation about how to reproject UV coordinates from a plane onto a sphere. And I'm like, what is going on?
Like, yeah, but CG basically figured it out. I was thinking, like, it was a crazy conversation sometimes. Gabe is there, who is really I think
Gabe's next
one
level.
Of the best, like his next level. Everyone knows about Gabe. And he basically made a render engine out of nodes. Like, what the hell? Render engine, which, like, in EV, he made cycles in EV, basically.
Well, he was doing cellular automata the other night with nodes. And right? I'm like, what? This is for like... Anyways. Another night. But anyway, so that's your intro. That's how you got into stuff. And you got this mechanical engineering background, right? So you're no stranger to math. Like you've been exposed to it a lot, and I could see how you using it. But you got this really cool, I guess, focus. I don't know if for me it feels like it's this focus on photorealism and doing procedural materials, photorealistically. So. And like I've seen some of your work, like the chessboard that you shared with me, or like your the brick texture that you've been working on, or other things that you've done, and like this stuff is like it's like photograph. It's like looking at a photograph, and you're creating all this stuff with math nodes and with the procedural nodes in Blender, and I guess it's just really empowering, just like how November is. Whenever that comes around, and it's like this incredible explosion of art, and you think, how are these people doing this with just math? I feel that way when I see your stuff. Like, how are you making such amazing photoreal stuff with just nodes? Like, that's really incredible. And I wanted to kind of, I guess, pick your brain a bit and just get you to talk about your process. So how do you approach it? So like, if you're looking at a surface and you're like, all right, the chessboard, for example, I want to make this chess piece and I want to get all the details right, all the scratches. Like, how do you even begin to approach something like that procedure?
Yeah. So first of all, having real world references is really good. And I actually figured out that I'm kind of good at chess, by playing with Curtis and CG Matter. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm good at it. So I was like, okay. And Curtis made this challenge saying that, okay, make something related to chess. But before that, I started making the chessboard, but never thought like, okay, should I compete in the challenge? Then I thought like, why not? Okay, I said, yeah, okay, fine. I'll just do this for the challenge. And the modeling was pretty basic. It was just a screw modifier for the pawn with just curves. And then the texturing took me about 9 hours to 10 hours alone.
Wow.
Because I'm very bad at plastic. I never tackled plastic before. All I was tackling was just bricks, surfaces, rocks, and tiles, basically, but never plastic. So there's this person, Syncretic, who's really good at plastic materials and metal shaders. So him, like how he made plastic, and he gave me really nice breakdown. He showed his node setups and everything. So I was like, okay, this can be actually used. And first I was like, okay, first let me get the basic material, like just the principal BSDF shader. On top of that, surface imperfections. What makes a surface look realistic? Surface imperfections make it look anything realistic. So I started looking at the references, and I've checked if it is a pawn, if you're not using it, dust will accumulate. If you're using too much, scratches, fingerprints, and everything. So I basically break down these two different steps. Like first, let me make the scratches, then I'll add the fingerprints, and then add a layer of dust, So it's a step-by-step process of thinking anything. And the chessboard was just a checker texture with just a slight little. I was so scared of compositing in the first place. Okay, never touched. When you say, okay, he's a node person, um, he should also be good at compositing because it's also nodes. No, I was not. Every time I make a render, I send it to Arundel and he'll do the compositing for me and make it look better. Like every single time, it's always Aaron
Oh,
who
that's
basically does
great.
it for me.
Aaron, can you do all my compositing too, please? Thank you. That'd be great.
It's
Um,
always he just says like, okay, bring down the levels and add this color balance node. I was like, what? Why? But I understand that, and then I spoke to Kev and in Light VFX, who is Jacob, who
yeah.
are really good at compositing, and they gave me they sent me some videos of other softwares which are really good at compositing,
Mhm.
and I understood why that works, and then I researched how the math worked behind as well. Once I got the math, I was more comfortable with the node, if that makes sense.
That's a good
Color
approach.
balance.
Understand the math, and then you can use it. Once you become dangerous, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So so let's go back. So you broke it down to these different steps, right? So you looked at the chess piece and you go, okay, if you're not using it a lot, there's dust that's going to collect. So I need to do a dust layer. There's scratches, imperfections. Like you're not just looking at it and going, okay, there's just bumps on it. I need to just throw a Musgrave on this thing and then I'm done and great, and move on to the next material, which is what I do. I mean, that's my approach. I'm like, Musgrave that thing and then move on to the next, right? So you
Yes.
say you took 9 hours and you looked at those layers. Like that is an exceptional amount of, I guess, observation of detail. And I think that's a really cool thing to draw out of what you're talking about, that if people want to make really cool 3D art, you need to have an exceptional level of observation for detail and a willingness to sit with an image for a long time. I think some people
Yeah.
abandon images too soon. They go, oh, it doesn't look good enough yet. And that's,
Yeah.
it's really good to watch live streams, I think, of artists working sometimes, like,
Yeah.
because you get to see, okay, actually, it doesn't look great for a long time, and you get to the end. But
Yeah.
so let's talk about, so like let's take one of those things like the dust, right? So what was going on with there? Like how would you do the dust? Can you talk
Yeah.
me through, like, if you remember? I don't know if you remember the exact node setup, but
So
just what did you do?
yeah, I mean, I think I know the node setup. It's just a noise texture with high roughness and another noise texture to basically tone down the heights, give it some more randomness. I just take a noise texture and multiply it with a large scale noise texture with more roughness, and then just plug that through the roughness. Most of them plug it through the roughness and set it to 1. But then what I use is I use a diffuse texture because, um, dust
So a
particle doesn't
separate, like a
have.
separate like material node,
Yeah,
a
separate
diffuse
material
material.
node.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like when you plug the roughness to 1, it is just a diffuse in principal VS diff shader. But then again, you have to make a mask and then you have to give a different color, like a very dull color for dust, and then mix them, which I think is more hard. But instead, we can use like a diffuse texture with very bright whites, or you can tone down the color if you want, and then mix it later on top of that, which that's something which I learned recently, like using, like every time I make a shader, it's like a PBR texture, like whatever I'm going to make, it's going to be a PBR texture. So I make the PBR maps procedurally. I make the roughness map and use one principal BSDF shader for the whole material. But most of the people use different materials and combine them using a mix shader node. But I only use mix RGB nodes to combine all the maps and then make one combined shader and use one single node, like one single principal PSF shader node. I think that's a bad way to approach, but then I got more comfortable with it, and it's very computational less expensive as well, calculating
Okay.
one time instead of using two different.
So you
And
feel like you
yeah,
can get the same result by focusing
yeah,
just on like each of those different elements, and then
yeah,
so okay, and let me go back a little bit too. So this guy that talked to you about plastic, right? This is an exciting podcast, by the way, folks. We talk about plastic here. This is where it's all at. If you want to know how to make plastic, stay tuned. So what was the secret recipe there for that? Like when was it just the IOR value of plastic, and there
yeah.
you go? Or did he get into, like, was he throwing subsurf at you or something? Like what was the?
Like there was no subsurface or anything. It's just the specularity and the roughness and the color. The color, specular, and roughness are the main 3 channels, and I never touch metallic at all most of the time. until I'm using actually a metal shader. Like before, it was like using a along with um, glossy along with a diffuse to mix to get the plastic. So I use the same technique. I didn't go for the principal BSDF shader first. First, I made the whole plastic using the traditional methods, and then use those maps and plug them to the right sockets in the principal BSDF shader finally to see the same result. And I got the same result as well. So I start with the diffuse and glossy to get the basic plastic instead of using a principal BSDF shader.
That's
That's it.
really
That's
interesting
me.
you say that because like I think it's actually a really good habit to try and do. I think a lot of us don't think about it these days because we have the principal BSDF, but this is a relatively new thing. Like this was one of those cool innovations that came out of, I think it was Disney that came up with it, or maybe it was Pixar. I'm pretty sure it was Disney. Anyway, somebody.
Yeah,
But for
it's Disney.
years, like I know for me, yeah, okay, Disney. For years for me, I didn't have the luxury of the principal BSDF, and I had to build all my shaders manually like that by using a diffuse, using a spec, using all these different types of
Yeah,
shaders and combining them up slowly. And it's actually a really good way to kind of reverse engineer something like the principal BSDF to understand how it works. So that's really cool that you're
yeah,
doing that to teach yourself. Are there
yeah.
any things like have you learned? Are there, I guess, so there are things that you've learned or places you've gone to like as a resource to understand. You know how like materials, like different types of materials, they've got these sort of set properties, right? They've got certain specular levels. They've
Yeah.
got certain IORs, which if you're not familiar with listening to an IOR, it's the index of refraction. It's that number down at the bottom of your principal BSDF. And it has to do with how light is refracted off an object or through an object. Off, through,
Through an object.
through,
Yeah. True.
through it. I know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. And so where are you going? I guess have you begun to build up like almost like a scientific library of these are the properties of different types of materials, or are you not thinking at that level? You're just kind of going, look, this wood looks
Like,
shiny. I'm going to bump my
yeah.
specular up.
Uh, that's how I used to do at least before I got in. Like, there's another huge, like one of my favorite node person, Luca Rude, who is working on a course with Creative Shrimp at the moment on procedural materials. And I did see some of his work in progress, and it's just beautiful. Like my work is nowhere near his. Like I'm just like at level 1, he's at level
There's
100.
always somebody.
Yeah, there's always
There's always
someone like
somebody
who I look
at
up
your
to,
level
right?
100. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Simon Thomas, and then it's like it's always the three people who I always look up to when I'm doing nodes. And I reached out to him. Like he's such a nice person. I reached out to him through Twitter, like that he likes my stuff, and I said like, I have seen your stuff. Like, how would I think about this wood material? Like said, he gave like the actual scientific details, and he sent some really nice um, videos which help him through this process. It is by Cinecat Pro. Like most of the people are familiar with photorealism series, or like how to make photorealistic materials, PPM materials by Andrew Price. And Andrew Price actually took help from Cinecat Pro, and his channel has about 8 videos talking about every single um, workflows, like specular workflow, metallic workflow, how to make the nodes from scratch. And that actually helped me a lot. Like those 8 videos changed my whole perspective, how light reacts to the surface. And
Yeah.
so I mean, it's pretty boring, trust me, but then you have to get through it. You have to get through it.
That's it. You got to look at the prize. Like,
Like
what's the
obviously
goal?
it's a
Where are
film.
you heading? Yeah, that's it. So
Yeah,
that's
like
really interesting.
I
So
started the series for about 4 times.
so like
Yeah,
so in that sense, like what you're saying is there is a point where you can learn the ins and outs of like the mechanical part, like well the scientific properties of materials, and you can actually bring that knowledge to your shaders that you're putting
yeah,
together. Is that right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
and there's really nice website for getting the index of refractions. Like I'll link it in the resource section, which I am making for the video. Once that is done,
thank you
it'll
very
be under
much.
the video. You guys can.
Yeah, we're going to post up a lot
I
of
mean,
resources and links and stuff after like in the
yeah,
description of this video and also on the podcast, so you guys can get all the stuff.
yeah. And
Yeah,
the
that'd
next
be
thing
really helpful.
is Yeah, the next thing is like I talk to a lot of people on Discord, and mine and Aaron's server, we run the channel, we run the server together. It's such a huge procedural community that we built within 8 months for now, and there are about 2,667 people right now in the server, and everyone are interested in proceduralism. And if you have any doubt, you can go to the help channel or to the general chat. If you post it, you'll get solutions immediately within 10 minutes. And that's really fast. Before, that's not how it was. When I started off with shaders, I had to like think, I have to go search, go to all the uh, stack pages, Blender stack exchange pages, and see if anyone already did that. But it was really hard. But then once we made the server, it was more easier to communicate with each and everyone. So if I and it's not like it's not only me who is working on this one particular shader. We'll start, and some others will join, and they'll make their own version of it. And it's like once the whole thing is done, 4 to 5 people will have 4 different versions of the same thing. So we all go to the voice chat, share it around, and it's really nice. It's really nice.
Yeah, cool. Do you have one of those images handy, like the chess piece or the image of the wood or anything? I'm putting you on the spot. I didn't ask you to have this stuff prepared beforehand.
Yeah, like
Can you?
yeah, I
Can
do
you? If
have.
you look down at the bottom of your screen, there's a share screen button.
Yeah, just give me a second. Let me
Yeah, no worries.
open PRF.
It'd be fun to actually pull one of these up, just so
Yeah.
people can see just the image. We can, as we talk about this a little bit.
Yes,
So
it might take a second, but I'll
that's
be
fine. Yeah.
there.
While you pull that up, I'll talk. So I guess so. Just to summarize so far, I guess where we want to go with this conversation too is how people that they want to get into this stuff, they want to learn, and they want to grow in this way to be able to make really cool stuff procedurally. What are these
Yeah.
resources? And what you're talking about with the Discord, like that's great. I think like Discord's really opening up a lot of awesome flexibility and sort of niche groups for connecting to other people that are learning this stuff. And that's like, for me, it's been really helpful, like different Discords that I'm in, to be able to pop in and just go, hey, look, I'm working on this, I'm trying to figure this thing out, what do you guys think? Like the other day, like I was trying to figure out how to do concentric circles, and I popped on and I was like, hey, how do you do this? And like within like 2 seconds, Charan, you popped in, you had this amazing answer, and then CG Matter popped in, did a video, here's how you do it, and it's just like that kind of resource, that sort of
Really nice.
helpfulness is really, really, really awesome. But cool. Okay, so you've got
Yeah.
your
Can you see
screen
the
up.
screen?
I'll share it. Just make your image full screen, and I'll pop it up for everybody. All right, there we go. I mean, just give it a few seconds, and
Yeah.
hopefully the YouTube compression will resolve a little bit. Zoom into the chess piece. Just for everybody that's watching on the video, just so it's a bit closer there. Okay, just leave the mouse and stuff. We'll see if the compression resolves a little bit, so you can see the detail. So if everybody's just listening on the podcast, so what we're looking at is a pawn. It's a pawn on a chessboard, and beautiful depth of field in the shot. And the pawn itself, like it looks photoreal. Like there's little scratches, there's pock marks, there's little chips out of the plastic down at the bottom. Like you can see through the black to the the white scratches. You can see the actual color of the underlying material. That's below the enamel. You can see those horizontal banding lines, like that slight riveted texture that you've got on the surface.
Yeah.
And it's so that entire material. That entire material is all procedural. That's right. There's no
Yes.
like image
Yes.
textures and stuff. That's right.
I mean,
So-
there is like one thing. Like I try to make fingerprints procedurally, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
But then I succeeded, but then it was too computationally expensive. I always think about computational expensivity every single time I make something. I think it's really bad because even though I have a really nice PC now, I still look at will this run in a decent laptop if I share the file. So, and then I kind of switched to image texture of the baked version of my shaders, like my scratches. I mean, sometimes I make something procedurally and then I bake it down and then use that on top of the existing geometry. So it's still procedural, but there is an image texture, which I bake down from the material.
It's really cool. Yeah, you're quite the engineer. Always thinking about the cost of the computation. So
Yeah.
with like with this particular material, right? So you've got these little scratches and stuff
Hmm.
that are going on in there. What's like
Yeah.
what's the texture node that you're using there to generate that? Like,
It's one noise texture. That's it. It's just one noise texture with some math nodes on top of that.
okay, and so you're like clamping and pushing those values around to just limit how
Yeah.
much of it pulls through.
So I mean, you know that we have this node called separate HSV, and we can separate the color channel of the noise texture to three different channels, either three RGB channels or HSV channels. So I use the saturation and the hue and divide the hue with the saturation and clamped it to get this effect.
And is that just you blindly guessing, like I'll just plug these two together
Uh,
and see what happens, or what's the logic behind that decision?
so what I would say is, like, the hue is unchanged with anything. It's just a value between 0 to pi, I guess, because it's a circle. Like hue, it's like going around the circle. So what I thought about it was, like, whenever I see a texture, procedural texture, I'll go through all the possible outcomes, just from that texture, if that makes sense. Like, noise texture has a factor output and a color output. So what is color? And then Voronoi has three channels in some drop downs. Like, there is smooth Voronoi, there's normal Voronoi, and then there's a color output, there's a position output, and there is just distance output, right? Voronoi is just calculate distance between two cells. So I go through them and I'll see where I can use them, and basically break down to its individual components by separate XYZ and separate RGB, and just remember them. Okay, these are there, so if at all, if you want to use something like this, it's always available. And then I try to mix two or three different textures and see if I get anything interesting. Basically, you need to spend some more time, like, just tweaking values until you're satisfied,
Yeah.
if that
So
makes
like for
sense.
this particular example where you're dividing, so you said you took the hue and divided it by the saturation. Was that right? Or you had another
Yeah.
step? Okay.
Yeah, I
So
divided by the saturation, and then
saturations, is saturation like
yeah.
it's a 0 to 1, right? It's just a floating point number
Yeah.
between 0 and 1, right? Which
So yeah.
determines the intensity of the color, or how
Yeah.
high all the number values are. And
Hmm.
then hue is that, the circle. So
Color.
was there anything in your head that made you go, if I divide hue with saturation, it's going to give me this look? Or was it you going, I'm going to just see what this does if I plug these in?
I mean, I know, like, for example, when you divide something with a lower number, like, which is between 0 and 1, it always brightens the value. For example, it's like multiplying with 2 or dividing by zero point 0.5 is the same, right? So if you multiply a number with 2 or divide it by zero point 0.5, it's the same thing. So all the values that I have are between 0 and 1. So when I divide it with a value, it's going to increase the value. So, it's going to, like, push it out of 1, which means I can clamp it just to get the lower values, if that makes sense.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
So basically, wherever the
that's
saturation was lowest, you were
yeah, it
getting
will
the
be the
highest,
brightest.
and it was
Yeah,
clamping those and getting rid of them. And then you're kind of being
yeah,
left with the stuff with higher saturation values in the
yeah,
noise. That's cool. So that's really helpful, actually, to hear you say that. I know you might think, yeah, well, just no big deal, whatever. But it's actually really interesting to hear what your brain was doing when you thought to
yeah,
put those two things together, even if you didn't know what the exact outcome was going to be. But
yeah,
thinking in that way and going, okay, if I could push these numbers above 1, push this below 0, and then clamp, it's going to get rid of these things and it's going to output different things. I know you've often said to me, like, you find it really interesting watching Arundel do stuff because you think,
yeah.
he approaches nodes very differently to the way you do,
Yes.
right? And you approach it very mathematically, and
Yeah.
and he approaches it wrong, which is what. No, I'm just kidding. You don't say
Which is
that. But
no, he's wrong. Like, basically, he's wrong. God
basically,
damn
wrong.
it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm tearing you down there. It's only because I can see it in
Yeah,
chat.
it's just exactly. So how Aaron approaches stuff is, basically he slaps two or three textures together, or, like, just
I like
assume this
slaps.
should,
That's great.
like,
That's very.
he just snaps over there, and then he used some math nodes and just does it. I'll be like, do you know what you're doing? He'll be like, no, I'll just figure it out. Like, let's just connect this and see what's the result. And first he'll get some random result, and if he likes the result, then he'll go back to the math and understand the math later. Where me, I just look at the screen for hours together and think, okay, will this math work or not, and then try applying that. Like, It's very rare that first I do something and then understand the math. First I understand the math and do stuff. So it's just two tangents of workflows
Yeah.
that me and Aaron has. But then every time we talk about something, like his way of approach is, it's more because he looks at the artist point of view. Like when he does stuff, he'll be like, you don't have to remember every single function and what it does mathematically, but then if you know, like, fraction basically repeats stuff, you can simply use it to tile the texture. But then why is it repeating? Because it removes a fractional part of any real number. That's how I would say, because I'm more mathematical. But then
Right.
Aaron will be like, it just repeats it, so you don't even worry about the
Well,
math.
this is a really encouraging point, I think, because it's really fascinating, and I think that everybody that's listening to this and watching, like, everybody's got different personalities and different approaches to stuff. And I can turn your chess. Actually, let's keep the chess piece up. It looks so good. Let's keep it up.
I mean, there's one thing we
Show
can.
me that. Here,
Uh,
you want to keep sharing that? Okay, yeah. Show us the brick. I'll keep explaining my point. So, what's really cool about that, I think, is that we all have different personalities and we all think in different ways. Our brains are all made up in different ways, and so we're all going to approach problems differently. And so, like, the way Aaron is approaching a problem as is this visual artist kind of approach, where he's going into it visually and he's solving it visually, and then as he solves it visually, he's then coming out the other end and then sort of understanding it. I mean, we're talking for you right now, Aaron. Let us know if we're totally wrong. But, and then he solves it, backwards. He understands, okay, that's how I got to this point. That's interesting. Whereas you're sitting in there staring at a blank screen, thinking about the math, and then you go, this will be the thing that works. And, those are two very different approaches to the same problem, and you get the same result. And, for everybody out there that's, maybe, you're very mathematical and logical, and you may think, I'm not that much of a visual artist. You know what I mean? Like, you have to remember math. I mean, if you know math well enough, I'm sure you already understand that it's an art form in itself. But you can approach things that way. You can come to it from logic. You can come to it from a systematic approach of breaking down a material and thinking about all those different layers that are going on. Likewise, if math is a challenging subject for you, and you don't really understand it, you can approach it the other way and visually figure it out, and then come back to it and go, oh, cool, this. Or you could be like me, and you could not understand the math going into it. You could make something that looks cool and then have no idea how you got there in the end and just give up and just keep going, So you can have all three of those are valid options. And you too can start a podcast and talk to people that know what they're talking about. Makes you feel better about it. But anyways, so let's talk about this one. So you got this brick texture, which looks, again, amazing. Lots of different things going on here. I'm really interested in the grout, like the cement between the bricks, the mortar.
Motor?
The mortar.
Like it's just a high roughness, but using the three channels, like other three channels, RGB channel, and using a maximum operation to get the maximum height of all the three channels, if that makes sense.
So, okay, let's break that down. So you've taken all three channels, RG and B, or are you working with HSV this time? Just RG and B?
No, RGB, yeah.
Okay, so red, green, and blue. You're taking those into, each one goes into its own maximum node?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? And what that does is...
R and B goes to one maximum, and the output of the maximum goes through the B to another maximum.
Got it. So you're taking the highest value between R and B first. So
and then the highest value of that.
And it sort of compresses it down into another gradient that has those values determined, whichever was higher. Was it blue higher? Was it red higher? And then that one that is going into the other one. So, okay, so you're ending up with, basically, you've taken all three of those color channels. You've taken the highest of all of them and combined them into one gradient.
Yes.
All right.
Why? Exactly.
Why would you?
Because I'm just like, I don't know if I can draw on top of this one. Can I? But I wish I can open Blender. Can I open Blender real quick?
I don't know. How good's your computer? Should be fun.
Yeah. Okay, can you see this?
Yes, I'll describe to everybody that's just listening to the podcast as well. So we just have Blender open.
Okay.
Default cube.
Then I'm adding a plane.
Default cube's gone. Plane. Just got added.
And then shader editor. What basically happens here is the noise texture is something like this, right?
So it's
centered about
really,
0.5.
Really curvy, wavy line across a horizon plane.
Yeah, and it is centered about 0.5. The minimum is 0. Like right here, it is 0. And right on top, it is 1. It is centered about 0.5. So this is the R channel, let's say, okay? Then let's say this is the blue channel, okay?
So he's just drawn another squiggly line that
And then
overlaps the first one.
yeah, exactly. And the other one is a red channel, something like this. Nothing
The
is
squiggly one.
similar.
Yep.
So what I'm trying to do is I don't want the lowest points, okay? I only want the highest points because I need these bricks to be popping out more, like towards the end. I don't want anything to go inwards too much. So what
Okay.
maximum does is it basically takes can I just, let's see, edit annotations tools. Where's annotations? Oh yeah, here, right? Let's add another one. Let's change this color to red. Now what I'll be doing is I'll just take the maximum of everything, just these points, which is just the maximum of all the things that we did so far.
Okay,
Does that
so
make sense?
everybody just picture in your head, those of you listening. So we've just got these three wavy lines, and right through the center of it all, there's a line up at the top that they all kind of go up and touch, and then drop back down to a line at the bottom. So that one at the top is 1, and one at the bottom is 0, and right in the middle, drawn through the whole thing, intersecting it, is a line that represents 0.5, the halfway point. And so what Trans is
Yeah.
doing now is he's just drawing this line across everything that's above 0.5. So basically, using the maximum operation, the way it's done, it's gotten rid of everything that dips below 0.5, and it's kept everything that goes above 0.5.
Not
So between
exactly. Like
0.1.
for example, at this point, this is 0.6, let's say, okay? But the other channel is having a maximum value at the same location. So it takes this point. Yeah.
So it's comparing
But
the
then
two.
anyway, guys, like I'm making a video series on
Yeah, there's a
Cryptomat
good plug.
at the moment.
Good
So
plug. Everybody,
yeah.
go watch Just
So
80
it's fine.
Things on YouTube, and you'll get caught up on all this stuff. But so let's actually segue, because that's a good point, right? So so and that's really interesting, by the way. Like that thinking of, okay, I want to have stuff like move out, right, from not go back. So I'm going to use maximum to do that. So that's like a tool set, right? So having a tool set is really, really useful. So being able to go, okay, I know that I can do these visual things with these operations or these functions. And that's something to remember, like for any artist out there, is you can build this stuff up as you practice. Like you just go, take apart other people's project files, have a look at how these things are being done, and build up a tool set for yourself for how to do this kind of stuff. So, and that's really, really useful. But
Yeah.
let's shift gears a touch, because I want to get to talking a little bit about machine learning and your experience with that, because I find that really interesting. And
Yeah.
I want to talk first, though, let's kind of transition into that by talking a little bit how someone out there could start to learn this stuff for themselves. It just like the raw math behind it as an artist. Like, okay, so I'm an artist and I'm a visual thinker. I need to see stuff for it to make sense. How can
Yeah.
I begin to learn this stuff? What are some of the resources that you've run into, like on YouTube and stuff, different channels that you watch, that have been really helpful?
Yeah. Like I didn't basically I was a machine learning person and a robotics person, to be precise. Like um, I am like much into robotics at one point in my life, which is, I mean, I'm still into robotics, but then not as much as I'm into Blender now. So before I started Blender, I was into robotics and there was no resources at all. So I had to Google everything myself, and I understood that mechanical engineering is just 40% of robotics. Everything else comes in programming. So though I had this mechanical engineering background, I learned programming myself, especially Python, and realized if you want to do more good applications, you need machine learning. So again, if I don't know something, Google how to learn machine learning within a week. Can't. You just can't. So and then to the thing, other prerequisites, math, a lot of math. So if you need to understand machine learning, you need to learn math. And I'm not going to say like it's going to be easy in the first few days. Like you won't know why you're using this matrix. You don't know why linear algebra is useful at all until you start coding the functions that you learned in the math in programming. So what I think is, if you want to start learning machine learning, start with the math and then go to any course online which explains machine learning, and you're good to go. So the basics is the math. It has linear algebra, it has statistics, it has calculus. These are the three main things for machine learning. And for linear algebra, Open Courseware is the best place to learn linear algebra, and Gilbert Strang is one of my favorite instructor over there on MIT Courseware.
That's where
And
I'm
I
learning
took it.
currently. Everybody at home, that's my current MIT Open Courseware. Go look it up. It's really worth your time. But yeah, linear algebra
Yeah,
course there's really good.
it's really good. And then that is the basics. Like, it's like chalkboard math. All is explained on the chalkboard. But then most of the people who are into math know this YouTube channel called Three Blue One Brown. Three Blue One Brown is by Grant Sanderson. He's like the best visual math person I can think of. Like, he basically talks about vectors. He talks about everything on a 3D space. If you want to move from this point to that point, you need to go in that particular direction, and that direction is nothing but the vector that's pointing along that direction. So it explains everything visually.
Let me
So
jump
three
in
blue, one brown.
real quick too about that. I want to add like 'cause so three blue, one brown. Like I would almost say like go watch all that stuff first and
Yeah,
then go over to MIT courseware because like I kind of did it the other way around. Like I was doing the MIT course on linear algebra and kind of getting it and struggling a bit because I don't think mathematically. But I
yeah.
saw the three blue, one brown stuff and it clicked because it was like a visual
Clicks.
explanation of the
A
concepts.
visual
But
explanation.
let me put what we're talking about in context. I feel like I need to like contextualize it for everybody. The reason why this is important, or the reason why this is useful for an artist, especially someone working in 3D, is everything that's going on in Blender is dealing with vectors and matrices, and it's all linear algebra in function. Like it, and if you can understand this stuff, if you can begin to grasp it even a little bit, like if you want a trajectory, right, for how to really thrive and participate in November this year, right? First step, go watch, Three Blue, One Brown, like, and start to wrap your head around vectors and wrap your head around
Yeah.
vector math and all that stuff. And then you're going to start to make sense of, oh, that's what's going on when I separate RGB. And that's what's going on when I use this math node to get the dot product of such and such to like, figure out where this ray is going in my scene.
Yeah.
Like it starts to unlock this amazing world
Amazing,
of
right?
possibilities for you, especially with stuff like geometry nodes that's coming down the track. Cause it's like this information can literally unlock a treasure chest of magic tricks for
Yes.
you in your art. And you're just going to go, like you're just going to take off. And so if you're never thought about looking into this, like let me just stop the podcast and just say go check it out, like look this stuff up.
Yes.
It's going to be really useful. So now
Yeah.
so where we're going with this conversation though,
Like,
with machine learning, like this is the kind of where I want to land. This is like this machine learning is sort of the next level of what's possible, what we could use to unlock 3D art. There's a lot of really exciting things going on in that space, and so we'll talk about that in a minute. But but anyways, that's the context of why linear algebra is important. It's why we're talking about it, and why it
yeah.
could be useful for you as an artist. So anyway, sorry, Sharon. So we talked about Three Blue, One Brown being really useful. We talked about MIT Open Courseware and Gilbert Strand. What
Yeah.
else would you add to that mix?
And this is like the basics of math. And also for calculus, again, OpenCourseWare has really good calculus courses. But again, Three Blue One Brown has another calculus course called The Essence of Calculus. Like, I really wish my teachers in my school taught that way, because, once you watch that series again, what I'm suggesting you guys is like, there's two series in Three Blue One Brown's channel called The Essence of Linear Algebra and The Essence of Calculus. These two series basically changed my whole perspective of math. Literally, like everything is visual. Whatever he says, you can see it. You can actually like close your eyes. You can actually see it. It is that good. So once you go through all the concepts that Three Blue One Brown teaches, you can start with any online course related to machine learning. Like most of the time, when people talk about machine learning, they go to code and start writing some lines of code, and they can use TensorFlow or SkyPy for actually starting. Like SkyPy and TensorFlow are two different modules, just like BPY, which acts as Blender Python. TensorFlow is for machine learning and neural network use cases. So those are just like some Python modules which you can install, and people just start with that, but then they don't know what exactly happening under those functions. They just knows that, okay, if you want to add a convolutional neural network layer, just add con3D function and it's already added over there. But why should I use this? So you need to know the math. Again, just by learning linear algebra and calculus, you won't understand everything about machine learning. There's this amazing course which I'd recommend to every single person who wants to get into machine learning. It's by Andrew NG, I would say Andrew NG from Coursera. He has like a 11 weeks course on machine learning. I was lucky because I had like a 2 months break in between, and I completed the whole 11 weeks in 2 months. And yeah, I think it's stupid of me to do that, but still I had more time to work on. But if I followed it exactly in the 11 weeks and exactly how he asked us to learn, I think I can start any machine learning project and I'll be successful. So
That's
you'll
really
know all
powerful.
the math. Like, and why I'm suggesting that course is, if you want to know linear algebra, he's going to teach you linear algebra.
Okay, so
And
he
if you
starts
want to
with
know
everything. He goes all the
everything,
way.
he
Oh,
spoon
that's really
feeds
useful.
here. He spoon feeds everything. Even like if you want to
I
know
like
the programming
spoons.
that he's going to
That's
teach,
good.
he'll teach you the programming, and then he actually teaches you the programming. He teaches you the matrix, every single thing. And the best part is it's a free course. It's a free online course on Coursera.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so all right. Now let's talk about why this matters. Okay, so
Yeah.
I, there are some really cool things. So we started this conversation right talking about procedural workflows and thinking about how do you look at a surface, and Sharon, you were talking about you look at the layers of what you see. So you see the dust, you see the scratches, you see that you observe something in detail, and you begin to break it apart into these separate channels, let's say, of
Yeah.
noise and channels of fractal patterns and channels of these, and all of these things are like the noise node in Blender is coming from an algorithm. Like they're all these they're just equations that are pushing numbers in different ways and
Yes.
generating these really cool patterns. And so in essence, what you're doing is you look at a surface and you're looking for the math that's there. You go, okay,
Yeah.
this surface is being created with this kind of a math function. This surface is being made
Yes.
with this kind of a function. This is what this surface is doing. And you begin to put those functions together in a way that Blender can understand, so it can visually represent this thing that you're looking at. So what
Yeah.
your brain is doing and what your eyes are doing is, in essence, something that, for me at least, sounds eerily familiar to machine learning and computer vision, where you train an algorithm, you train a program on an input. So if you're not familiar, everybody, about how machine learning really works, like you give it a stack of data. So like you feed it thousands and thousands of pictures of dogs, right? And then you show it a picture of a cat, a horse, and a dog, and you say which one's a dog, and the computer compares the features of that image. So it looks at the pixels, and it compares the patterns that it picks up with the patterns that it's noticed in all this data that you fed it, right? So machine learning's
Yeah.
kind of got two parts. You've got like the gigantic briefcase of data that you feed to the machine, and then you give it the problem, and it's those two
Yeah.
things working together, right? So
Yeah.
the what what you're doing in your mind is very similar to like what's going on there, where a computer is using computer vision to identify patterns. And so I was, thinking about this the other day, going, you know what? I wonder how long it's going to be before somebody's going to have a machine learning program, where they can send it an image and it can look at the image and go, oh, cool. You just need to use this fractal noise pattern, this, this color ramp, these, math nodes to generate these different layers, and then combine them like this to get that exact look for this
Yeah.
thing. And then you sent me a link, Charan, of basically that very same thing being real in the actual world. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Where do you think, what do you think is possible, and what do you know about now in terms of technology and what people are doing with machine learning to create procedural materials or create realism
Yeah.
out of images?
Yeah, it's very like one of the best thing what I can think of, like which I really want to work on in the future, if at all, if I get a chance, is you know edge detection is one of the most trickiest thing that you can do with nodes, right? Like there's some mathematical way which me and Aaron do, and some we could use dirty vertex colors from texture paint, and then we can use a bevel and some other crazy vector math to get the edges. Sometimes pointiness works as well. But what I want to do is like at least take some really pointy surfaces, like take any surface and draw, like hand draw all the edges, and use the UV map as a data set with the object as the input. These two will one will be the input and one will be the output. The object will be the input, and that UV texture map will be the output. This will allow us to basically train a data set so that the node, like the AI node which we are going to create at the end, will basically give you the best edge detection ever, like for any surface. So you're going to train it with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of models with textures, and by the end you'll be getting one amazing node which basically takes any object as input and gives you the perfect edge detection. This could be one of the example where machine learning can be used. Like, I mean, to make realistic stuff, you need to get the edge data as well, right? I mean, you can do with, we can use more mathematical way of actually calculating the angles and finding what is an edge and what is not. And we can give a threshold saying, okay, this edge, these two planes like this are about this angle, like, about 30 degrees angle, which means that's a pointy surface. If it's at 90 degrees, it's like a right angle surface. If it's more than that, it can be smoothed out because it doesn't really matter that much if it's an obtuse angle between those two planes. So we can use that math, we can use some math, and we can do that. But then machine learning can actually give you better results and fast results as well sometimes. And another place where you can use machine learning is extracting textures from real photos. Like, you can take a random picture over there and you can ask the AI to generate all maps, displacement map, normal map, and everything just by taking one single picture. It can be dirty, it can have flashes, it doesn't have to be in certain light conditions. For example, if you want to extract any texture data from any particular location or particular surface, you need like an overcast sky, like in real life, right? Overcast sky, so that there is no harsh shadows. Everything has to be soft, and then bring up the levels to make different types of maps. But some crazy stuff which basically take a random picture on your phone at any light and give you proper maps, which can proper PBR maps from them, and you can use those. And if you can bump, you send it through upscaling, AI upscaling, and you can get like 4K, 8K textures from them. All these things are part of machine learning and um, can be used. Like, this is one of the other things. And like, this is only related to the texturing part, okay?
Yeah, I was going to ask too, just so, because we already have, machine learning in Blender now, right? So we've got
Yeah.
the denoiser, right, in Cycles, which is using
Yeah.
machine learning to remove noise. And so the way that works, if everybody's not familiar, is it's hundreds of thousands of renders were fed into a machine learning algorithm. And there were two versions of it. There was one that was like the really noisy one sample version of the image. And then there was the 100 sample version of the image. It's like super pristine. And it's compared those two images over and over and over again, all these different 100,000 different, images and iterations and stuff. And it's come up with this system of, being able to recognize, when you've got a noisy image, this is how to resolve it into the result. And so that's how it's able to do this stuff. And I think what's maybe good to point out too at this point, is what's really one of the really interesting things about machine learning, I think personally, is that it's very much a field where it's all about research right now. It's like, it's universities, it's individuals, people doing research, and they publish their work. And a lot of these machine learning things, like they're available, they're out there to use and play with. So if you have this, so you go do this Coursera course, let's say, with Andrew Ng, and you get the fundamentals of math. You go watch 3 Blue 1 Brown. You start to understand that stuff. You're playing around in nodes and you're getting it all. It's always starting to click. The next step there is actually you could then, find out about these different publications that are going around, and you can get a hold of their work and you can start to implement it, right? And start to use it. And I think it's like this whole tool set that's just sitting there that people don't even know about.
Yeah.
And like you were telling me, one of the things you were messing around with was like you were using machine learning to do like a real-time face tracker for Blender.
Yeah, that's something which I'm working on at the moment. Like, me and another friend.
Yeah.
We are trying to do like, you can think like it's like a very mini project, but also matters a lot. Real-time motion capture, like it just takes a facial data set, like face, and then it locates the landmarks on your face, and then it's any other 3D model, 3D face, and remaps those points on top of this one, and basically moves it in real time. it's possible with OpenCV and computer vision and
Yeah.
OpenDL. Like, I mean, I know exactly what to use, but then it's gonna take a long time to figure out how to use and how to, organize everything and make everything to work together. Because Blender Python is not which I'm much comfortable with. I know Python, I can do the stuff, I can get the data set, but then Blender itself is again a huge module. If you have to like get, I mean, there are really good tutorials. I can ask many other people who are actually making amazing add-ons. Again, Discord is the best place to ask any questions. I can go ask people and they'll help out and everything. So it is possible, but it will take some time because we need to invest time and everything.
Yeah,
But
it's a
once
long
it is done,
scale project. These
yeah.
things, it's definitely a long tail. But
One more thing, where machine learning and 3D actually excels, I think. I mean, I came up with this idea, but it's already there. Okay, like it just clicked, I searched, and it's already there. Can this technique be used? Cryptomats, right? Cryptomats surfaces. So basically, what does it? It isolates individual objects or like a collection of objects. Let's say a person, you can give a cryptomat color to each individual person in the scene, and you can give a cryptomat to other objects as well, like let's say cars in the scene. So if you build one 3D environment and one particle system of people and use the seed value to randomize stuff, and if you get the cryptomats, it basically image segmentation. It's separating images, it's separating people, and it's separating the world. It's separating the sky, it's separating the road, it's separating the cars and everything right in the cryptomat. You can do that, right? So that's something which actually like made me think we can create a photorealistic scene with some hard work, and we can use that as a training data set for real world images as well.
yeah, that's a really
And
good
when
idea.
once when we plug the real world image, the AI will be able to at least separate the humans with the color, and this can be used for rotoscoping. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there's a thing I've been following a bit. There's a machine learning, a couple of studies have been doing by a team. I forget where they are, like Stanford or something. But they've been working on machine learning algorithm that will take some footage. So like a handheld camera, I'm filming you, Charan, like we're hanging out, we're walking,
Yeah.
and then we take a photo of the background. You step out of the way, and we take a picture of whatever is behind you. Not even a video, just a photograph.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this program will take that photograph and then take the video, and it will remove the background as if it was green
Yes.
screen, and make a clean
exactly.
matte for the thing. And it's
That's crazy.
it's amazing. It's not perfect. Like because I really wanted to use it, and I was looking into it and stuff, and it's like the results, like it's not quite there. Like it's still kind of a little bit wonky. It's not a
janky,
perfect
but-
matte, but there is a point like where you're going to be able to, like I was thinking about, because I was really into thinking about independent filmmaking and how to make films really cheaply. And one of the things I was really excited about was this idea of, wow, like what if I took a camera and I took some actors and I went into like just hired out a little audition space, like a, kind of a soundproof studio. And I just did photogrammetry of that room, right? And had a 3D version of that room that was like a photograph. And then I just filmed the whole thing with the actors in that space and lit them and, had all that stuff done. And then, brought in a 3D version of that camera, whether I tracked it live, and then used that footage and ran it through this machine learning algorithm with that, this background, like duplicate that background and be able to then remove and not have to shoot on a green screen stage to just save time. And you start to make these connections, I think, when you are looking into this stuff and you're thinking about it. And those connections are really exciting because whether or not, like for me, it's beyond me to develop that, but I can see now where it's going and I can go, cool, this is going to happen sooner or later.
This is going to happen sooner or
I think,
later,
like, let's cast the net a little bit. Let's talk about the future of Blender, for example, right? Right now, we've got this really great denoising algorithm that, is removing noise from our cycles renderers, and we love that, right?
Yeah.
But, what do you think? Like, how far do you think this could go for us, like in 5 years' time? Like,
right now people are working on the video sequence editor and also compositor. Compositor can get really nice, rotoscoping tools, AI rotoscoping tools. I don't know, like it's in After Effects.
Yeah, what's it called?
Yeah,
the
brush,
quick
some
brush select or whatever. You can just like paint over a person and it will rotoscope them.
Yeah, like it is available in other softwares at the moment, but we need one for Blender as well. I think with where it's going, the amount of like the developers are working really hard on whatever they're working on, they're giving their best. And I'm pretty sure like if they hire some machine learning person and give them a topic and give them enough data sets from like, for example, if you want a data set, all you need to do is just ask the community to just upload one of
Yeah,
the blend files. Exactly, that's all you have to do.
that's right.
And I mean, right now, Enterprise is doing this donut
The
thing,
donut.
praise
Yeah.
collection donut thing, right? See, like to make those many donuts, which are like individually unique, how long will it take? But then if you ask the amazing community that we built around Blender, it's very easier. So
Yeah.
dataset is not a problem at all. That's the thing happened with denoise as well. You have infinite renders with low sample, all the work in progress samples, and you
Yep.
have this amazing HD, like, 1,000 sample render. And it is able to do that. That's because of the amazing community that we have. So it is possible to do machine learning stuff with it. And
Let me ask you this question, Charan. If you were on Blender's development team, right?
yeah,
If you had, a lot of sway in the team and you could call the shots, and
yeah.
you were able to hire a couple of machine learning people and put them in a corner and say, figure this out. What is
Figure
it?
this
What
out.
is that you would set them on? What would you go? All right, you guys, figure this out. Implement this
Yeah,
in
I
Blender.
mean, because I'm more of a node person, I would really like to have some node based material creation. Or sometimes one of the most craziest idea that I got was like, can I actually give a photograph of any texture, and can the neural network build a node setup for me, like a procedural node setup that gives me the same output as an actual PBR texture, which is crazy, but it can be possible. But I mean, it can be possible with enough training data set and the achieving photorealism. I think it's not possible with Blender nodes at the moment, but for sure
Yeah.
with Substance, for sure.
Well, I
For
think it's exciting
Substance,
because
for sure.
it's possible. It's possible now. Like in Substance and stuff, like when a human's doing it, like
Yeah.
for real, like that. But it's definitely like, because it's this pattern recognition is really what it comes
Yes.
down to. Like
Yeah.
you can see that it feels a little tenuous, but I do think that it sounds like this is something that could happen eventually. Like we might be
Yeah.
able to take photos with our phone, a material,
Yeah.
and have this procedural node graph that just pops up.
Yeah.
I think what
Another thing
November would
is,
look like then, though. I mean,
yeah, oh my God.
so many.
Yes, that's something which, and another thing which I would say is like, motion tracking, rotoscoping, all these things can be actually AI powered. And few of my friends are actually interested in doing that. And I'm really happy that they're actually showing some interest in Blender. We might take up the project soon, the facial motion capture thing. But it can be, and also like post estimation, like, take a video. And there's this research paper that I read where it basically rigs, I mean, it basically shows the landmark of the rigs, of, what can I say, of the person, right? If he's dancing, it'll
Yeah.
create a rig, like a stick animation on top of that person, which is really cool. Like you can use the same data and reproject the animation onto any other model if you want, right?
Yeah.
It's really amazing. Like it's mocap from a video. It's not even a mocap sword. They're not using any mocap sword. It's
Yeah.
just a video, random video.
And it processes it
It just
and
works.
turns
It
it
just
into
works.
animation. It's so good.
Yeah, that's
And I mean,
amazing.
think about that too. Like that's going to be, I think rigging is a really interesting place for machine learning as well, right? Because like
Yeah.
rigging is it's a time sink, it's such a laborious process where you look at a shape and you go, okay, this is how I need this thing to move. And so I've got to set up all the IK and get all this stuff working so that like, the
Yes.
joints move properly. But, think about like, even like with like, what is it? The pose brush that we've got now where you can like just draw out this basic quick
Yeah.
shape and then you can like pose something. And,
Yes.
those kinds of things are going to become more and more and more and more, I guess, empowered with machine learning. Like there's going to be a
Yes.
point where you can start to, map out rigging and animation. And like you said, copy animation over to things. Like I think animation is going to get really interesting once this stuff happens. And
Yeah.
there was a really interesting talk. It was Andrew Price who gave it. You ever watch that there's a piece on YouTube. It's from one of the Blender conferences years ago. But he talked about the future
Future of AI. Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
And he
I
makes
did watch that one.
this point. I really liked his point. And he talked about this idea because people were always afraid of like the machines are
Yeah.
going to take over our jobs. But
Yeah.
the idea that that really what AI is going to do for artists especially is going to really like help us
a
become
lot.
way more productive.
Way,
Like,
way more productive.
you can generate
Yes.
5,000 versions of the tennis shoe design, with a click of a
Yeah.
button. And then you, the
Yeah.
artist, can look at them all and go, that's a cool, I'm going to run with this. I'm going to take this and do this with it. And then I'm going to do this other thing. And then I'm going to pop it into here. And I'm going to let my machine learning algorithm,
Figure
give
out
it some
everything.
animation. I'm going to just plug in, a horse animation to this and just see what the computer, wow, this is cool. It becomes like another paintbrush that you can work with. And
Yeah, exactly. Like you can be more creative with whatever you have back then. Like art is just evolving basically. We didn't have digital art before, but now everything is digital, right?
yeah, that's true. Everything's digital.
Yeah,
It's only
like
getting
people
more
will adapt.
digital.
Like I mean, people will get adapted. That's not a problem.
That's it. And
Yeah.
I think, it's a good point in chat, like MetaHuman right now with Unreal Engine, like
Yeah.
this sort of photo real browser based, human creation tool.
Creation
Like,
tool. Yeah.
it's crazy.
Also, human generator for Blender. It's really amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
that is actually, yeah.
it's really good. Like for example, if you want like a really quick model that you can't find anything, you can just use the inbuilt tools. You can also use random. You can basically get random humans like with
Yeah.
different anatomy, and it's perfect. It works. It works really well, and I'm really
That's
willing to look into that.
it's a dream come true. It's like my favorite part of any RPG is to sit the character creation screen at
Yeah.
the beginning and you just like spend 2 hours making this. It's fun, like having all that stuff now in Blender and Unreal. But I think the realism of all of these things, like there's so much that can be unlocked. Like the micro detail, the micro animation. So one of the hardest things with faces, right? Animating faces
Yes.
is the
Yes,
micro
yes.
detail, the animation of just every little muscle and shift in the landscape of a face, because our brains, like we spend our entire lives looking at faces. Our entire survival
Yeah.
depends on faces. So we
Yeah.
have such a perfect mapping of faces in our brains that you see anything that's not quite right, you can pick it a million miles away. And that's where you get that uncanny
Yeah.
valley effect of like a digital human that
Yeah.
doesn't quite look real. But micro detail animation,
Yeah.
like that's something that machine learning could take and easily begin to apply,
Yeah.
in scenarios like MetaHuman or like in, MakeHuman
In-
and Blender. And,
Like you can use for texturing as well, like microsurface details and actual bump calculations. This all can be done using machine learning. And one other thing where machine learning can be used is like, have you seen this thing where they just give you one picture, like a front view of a person, and creates a 3D model like like a very rough OBJ of it?
No, but
You
that's
haven't.
amazing.
Like it's amazing, right? Like I mean, we can do that as well. Again, how like it's very like
Yeah, this
to
is
put it
happening
in
now.
really
Like
simple
people are
words,
doing
yeah.
this stuff
Doing
right
it
now.
now.
Like, that's
Yeah,
the thing
it's
that's
right
like,
now. It's like Twitter is all about that. Like if you go to 3D, I think 3D machine learning, you can find it. You can find everything under that one tag, I think. So one way how they would approach that is like you can create a human, like photorealistic human in any software, and take renders of it, and use the renders as the data set of training and the output as a OBJ file. So if you have like 10 to 15 models, like or 10 to 15 models with 100 images and the same OBJ file, you'll basically get you have the image and you have the model. So the AI will learn how to make the model from those images, just like photogrammetry, but faster.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So
It's this, but faster.
it's
It's like
possible.
kind of the best way to understand machine learning. It's like you can do that, you can do it faster. You can
Faster.
automate this. I think sometimes like artificial intelligence is a misnomer. I don't feel like it's a really accurate term for it. Like
No, it's
the more
not.
I've learned about machine learning, because it's like it's not
neural
it's not
networks.
thinking. Like it's not actually what's going on there. It's just it's a
Yeah.
program that can identify patterns that we wouldn't be able to identify because we can't look at such large data sets. Like our brains
Yeah.
aren't capable of funneling that much information to find the pattern. And so we're using these
Exactly.
machines to do this. And it's I think when you begin to understand that, it's a bit less like, the world's ending.
Imagine if you want to detect a pattern, like going through every single pixel and analyze it with the previous data set it's not how humans look at something. Okay, these patterns are similar. That's not how it is.
I'd get bored at like the 20th pixel. I'd be like, oh, this is,
Oh my god, yeah, they're like, what? Like imagine 2K, right? Like how many pixels do you have in 1K image or something?
I'd rather not.
It's crazy. Like mission can do it within seconds, like not even seconds, milliseconds. It can train like loads and loads of images, right? it's crazy out there. And even the computation, the as GPU power increases, the more fast it gets basically.
Yeah,
So it's always there.
yeah, that's it. Like the increased computing speed is only going
Yeah,
to increase all this stuff. And
yeah,
so I think kind of a good place maybe to land this conversation for everybody is to just, I guess, realize that that there's a lot of really exciting possibilities that are coming our way. And as a 3D artist, if you can position yourself in such a way that you can understand this stuff a little bit, like not even a lot. You don't have to go do, Andrew Ng's course on OpenCourseWare and like be able to, fully
and
teach
like
linear
yeah.
algebra to somebody else. But being aware of this stuff is really, really empowering because as it starts coming our way, you're going to know what to do with it and know how to run with
Yeah,
it in your own work.
yeah, one point I would like to add here is again three blue, one brown. I'm bringing him up again and again because he does have an amazing series on neural networks. What actually happened behind the neural networks? You don't need to watch any other courses. Like just go watch the 4 videos that he made on neural networks. He'll basically give you the gist of what happens inside the neural network, what is a math, and he basically breaks it down to like smaller chunks and explains it perfectly, how it is training and what goes behind it, and visually. That's the most important part of his tutorials. Everything is visual. You can just
Yeah,
relax and see the animations.
that's actually we should end this podcast. Just say, okay, everyone go
Yeah.
subscribe to Through Wembley Brown's channel and go join his Patreon. And thanks so much. But seriously, it's an incredible resource, and I've
It's
been learning a
really
ton
really
from
good
it.
resources, honestly. Like those videos are also fun to watch. It's not like it's just some math. It's very fun to watch. And yeah, that's something. And guys, you don't have to worry about anything. Every single link that I mentioned right now, I'm making a resource file, so it'll be available for you guys to check that out.
Yeah, we'll put the links up. I'll
So
put them in the description of the video and
yeah,
the show notes on the podcasting app, so you can get a
yeah,
hold of all that stuff and chase it down, just like you can chase down Charan and his stuff on Just 3D Things on YouTube. So be sure to head over to his channel and give him a subscribe and like everything that he has made and put it on
thank you.
autoplay and just let it run in the background so that he gets lots of views. And spread the word
Oh,
about his
thank
work
you.
because he does amazing stuff. And I want to thank you, mate, so much for giving me your time today and just
Thanks
sitting
for
down to
having me.
chat. It's just so good just to get to hear what you have to say. And I really appreciate what you're doing in the Blender community. I feel like you're really helping a lot of people, and I want to
Thank
encourage
you.
you to continue doing it. And I know that you're
Yes.
like you're the most positive and encouraging constant like voice in the discords that I've been involved in. Like you always chime in with some really encouraging positive thing. So I think that you really spread the love, man. That's really great. And so I appreciate you,
Thank
and I
you.
hope you
Thank you,
continue to
Chris.
do that. And yeah, I hope
Yeah.
everybody at home will check out your stuff. So what's the best way? So they can find you at Just 3D Things on YouTube. Where else can they find you? Are there any other spots they should
They
look for
can
you?
they can find, if you go to my YouTube, all the links are in my in the top. So and please do join the Discord server of mine and Aaron's. It's a really best place to
What's the
get to
name of the
know.
Discord server? How do people find it? That'll be in the
Rendell.
link, right? With the
Yeah, I'll put the link.
okay,
I'll
cool.
give you
What's
the
it called
link. You
again?
can
Sorry,
share
I
it.
think I talked over you. What's it called?
It's rendell.xyz. That's the
Yep.
Discord server, and it's very much dedicated to proceduralism, geometry nodes, Houdini. You can talk about anything procedural, and it's not exclusive to procedural. You can talk about every other cell, but then most people talk about procedural stuff because the Discord is based, like, revolves around proceduralism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really good
Uh,
Discord. I'm in there. I joined up. It's fun. It's great to see the
yeah.
stuff that's going on there. It's really worthwhile. And I forgot what I was going to say. Total mental blank there. There was another great point. Oh well, it's gone. Oh yeah, I was going to just say it's just to remind everyone too. Why this stuff is exciting is because any surface you look at, any object you look at in the real world, like the visual representation of that object, you can represent it in math. You can represent it in Blender if you know how to see those different layers, see what's interacting, see what's going on, and know how to go after those resources, right? So you need to be able to hunt down those resources that Charan's talking about, and but realizing that for yourself, I think if you haven't realized that before, hopefully that's a really cool epiphany moment for you. Where you go, wow, I could make anything
Yeah.
in Blender look
Yeah.
photo real if I'm willing to put the time into it and really examine the
Yeah.
material and imitate it.
Yeah, one thing about my channel, like I just want to tell you guys, because I didn't put out more content right now because I've been working only with procedural textures about 6 to 7 months continuously
which is
without modeling
insane.
at
Like
all,
that blows me
without
away.
without modeling at all. So I kind of lost all my basics of modeling. So I came back to modeling now. So I'm just doing some modeling at the moment. So, but I'm going to make a video on how to make those bricks, and a huge vector mat series I planned. It'll be out soon, like within a month or two for sure.
Awesome.
But just thanks.
Yeah, so
It's
there's
really
a
nice to
reminder.
be here.
So go subscribe to his channel so that when it does come out, you get the notification, ring the bell, all that jazz. And don't forget
Yeah,
to subscribe to this channel too if you want to find out more stuff.
yeah.
I've got another exciting tutorial launching tomorrow. So if you want to find out how to make a giant space station, watch my channel tomorrow morning. That'll be coming out. Well, my morning. I don't know what time it is for you, but anyways. Charan, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. We didn't even get to talk about India. I was excited. I thought we were going to talk all about India because I used to live like an hour. Was
Maybe
it an
next
hour
time.
south of you? 2 hours south of you? How far away was I in Vellore? What was that? That's
It's just one and
2
a half
hours?
hour. That's it.
1.5
Yeah,
hours
it's one
south.
and a half
Like
hour. Yeah.
we were gonna do half this podcast in Tamil. I was like ready to go. Vanakkam, Ipidi Era Kinga, Nala, and
Oh, that's
something
beautiful.
like. Thank you.
Sabri.
Sauda. In a Sauda.
Yeah, it's like he's asking if I ate or not. Like I said, yeah, I did. That's really
Tamil,
nice.
South Indian Tamil culture is like one of the coolest things in the world. They have this greeting where they say, "Have you eaten?" Like that's how they say, "Hi, how are you?" It's like, "Hey, have you eaten?" And they're like, "Yeah, I've eaten." What have you eaten?
Yeah.
I've had sambar rice. Awesome. I just fell in
Wow.
love with the culture at that point. So if you ever go to South India, people look after you.
Yeah.
Anyways, good to chat with you, Charan.
Thank you.
Lovely
Thanks
to
for
get to know you a
having
bit
me.
more, and thank you for all your insights. And I hope everyone checks out all this stuff. And thank you for watching another episode or listening to another episode of the C. Bailey Cast. Again, you can find all the episodes on your podcast app of choice, so check it out. They go out semi-regularly, depending on how busy things are. But we're going to keep that going, and so I hope you're enjoying these. And you can also watch the video on YouTube and Twitch when we're live. But if you miss it on Twitch, you can catch it on YouTube. So feel free to do that.
Yeah.
And we will catch you in the next one. Until then, thanks for joining, everybody, and we'll see you later.